Mama sa sensitivity ng ibang mga kasama namin na pag-charge. Pakisipin ng mga tao, ginag-charge na sa korte.
Despite the changes in the initial committee report, Lacson maintained that the recommendation of his panel did not weaken at all. The senator likewise denied that the revisions were made because of supposed discontent in the minority bloc or due to the reported foiled coup against Senate President Tito Soto. Escudero, Estrada, and Villanueva belong to the Senate opposition.
Nothing to do with the supposed coup against SP?
Wala,
yung pag-change ng language?
Ano yun? Sa majority pa lang yun. My own colleagues in the majority, nagsuggest sila, baka naman pwedeng isopen natin, na hindi masacrifice yung intent. Hindi mababago yung substance. Kasi sabi ko nga may baseline ako di ba? Bottom line ko, hindi ko talaga i-report out yung hindi ako naniniwala.
The revised Senate Blue Ribbon Report has drawn mixed reactions. Ombudsman Boying Remulla attributed it to politics, but he still believes Lacson did a great job with the flood control scandal probe and that the committee's findings would still be helpful in going after those implicated in the mess.
It's politics. Ano na yan What is acceptable to all or to most is the most important thing. Kasi nga, nagkakapersonalan, siyempre may mga kaibigan niya sa loob na pipirma, wag lang nalagay yung pangalan. Gano'n yan. May negotiation yan. May compromise yan. Pero, at least, yung pagkapangalan sa kanila tsaka yung records intact. Ang mahalaga dyan, yung records ng Blue Ribbon Committee tsaka lahat ng testimonies niya. Yun ang mahalaga. Yung report niya kasi, anticlimactic yan Kung ano alam natin, yun na yun
Blue Ribbon hearing other critics have also accused the BRC report of bias. Lacson insists his committee based its report on evidence presented during the hearings and challenged critics to submit proof if they believe otherwise.
Kung meron silang ganong suggestion, mag-present sila ng ebidensya. No? Madali magsabi na bakit ito wala, bakit ito nandyan. Where's the evidence? They are members of the committee. Tumulong sila, hindi sila, instead na mag-criticize lang, tumulong na lang.
The revised Blue Ribbon report has not reached the minority yet, but Lacson is hopeful the measure would secure at least 11 signatures, enough to send it to plenary for discussion. Aside from charges, the report also holds recommendations for legislation and other measures to prevent further corruption in government projects. Kapatid mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes, we are One News.
Now, meanwhile, the House of Representatives has formally dismissed the 2 impeachment complaints against President Bongbong Marcos. With 284 lawmakers voting in favor, 8 against, and 4 abstaining, the chamber adopted the committee report recommending the dismissal of the complaints, effectively sparing the president from impeachment. House leaders said the allegations, including issues involving infrastructure funds and the creation of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, did not amount to a culpable violation of the Constitution nor betrayal of public trust. Several lawmakers opposed the dismissal, arguing there were sufficient grounds to proceed.
Ang presidente po ang nag-aproba ng special budget requests na nire-require ng batas that releases approved unprogrammed appropriations items after the budget was passed.
It does not clear the President's name. Tulad ng mga ghost projects na pinakamalaking scam sa ating kasaysayan, ang hilaw na pagbasurang ito sa impeachment ay multo na babalik ng babalik at ibabato ng ibabato sa Pangulo.
And in other news, Philippine Coast Guard Commodore J. Tariela is not saying sorry over his use of Chinese President Xi Jinping's caricature in a presentation. This comes after Senator Alan Peter Cayetano insisted that the PCG spokesman for the West Philippine Sea should apologize for the unflattering images of the Chinese leader. But Tariela defended his actions. In an interview with The Big Story, retired Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio says foreign diplomats must respect Philippine laws while operating in the country.
You cannot apply the standards in China to the Philippines because we have freedom of expression. There's no freedom of expression in China. There, if you criticize the President Xi, you go to jail right away. That's not the case here. No, we don't recognize that. We have our own laws.
The next few months will be exciting. That's according to Ombudsman Boying Remulla as his office gears up for a big push on corruption cases that he said are now ripening. Remulla made the remark in a press conference after speaking at the office's strategic and operational planning session in Baguio City. He said investigators are strengthening and organizing evidence to ensure cases are properly presented once filed.
Nahihilog yung mga kaso. So it's really more of us sorting up the evidence and making sure that we're able to present them properly. And we're conducting a lot of research, legal research, not only here but internationally.
And now on to the weather. The northeast monsoon and shear line will continue to bring rains to parts of the country today. Pag-asa said the Visayas, Albay, Sorsogon, Masbate, Surigao del Norte, and Dinagat Islands can expect cloudy skies with scattered rains and isolated thunderstorms due to shear line. The northeast monsoon or amihan will affect Cagayan Valley, the Cordillera Administrative Region, the rest of Bicol, Aurora, and Quezon, while Metro Manila and other parts of Luzon will experience isolated light rains. The rest of Mindanao will see partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers or thunderstorms caused by localized weather systems. Don't go away. We will be back with more stories right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa. And here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. Well, the Supreme Court has ruled that same-sex couples may be recognized as co-owners of property they jointly acquired and paid for. The High Court said same-sex couples are covered by Article 148 of the Family Code, which governs property relations of couples living together but unable to legally marry. The ruling granted a petition seeking recognition of co-ownership over a Quezon City property, with the court saying ownership should be based on each partner's actual contribution. The Supreme Court also urged Congress to address the broader rights of same-sex couples through legislation to ensure their legal protection. And now, to help us understand the significance of this Supreme Court ruling on same-sex couples and property rights, we're now joined by family lawyer attorney Sol Mawis. Good morning, attorney, and welcome to Morning Matters.
Good morning, and thank you, Mayor, very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Okay, so attorney, let's break down this latest ruling by the Supreme Court for viewers who may not be lawyers. What exactly did the Supreme Court decide in this case involving a same-sex couple, and how significant is this ruling?
It is very, very significant because for the first time, the Supreme Court recognized that notwithstanding the fact that we cannot have same-sex marriage because there is no law allowing that, at the very least, the Supreme Court recognized that if a same-sex couple acquired, properties, each of them will have some kind of protection with respect to their property relations. And so this is very important.
So this case involved two partners who lived together. They bought a home and even agreed to register it under just one name for convenience.
Yes.
And when they eventually separated, that's when the dispute began. Attorney Sol, do these instances happen often here in the country?
Yes, normally because of trust, maybe trust and confidence, and out of love, of course, you trust this person who will just register the property under her name, notwithstanding again the fact that he or she actually contributed to the acquisition. And then later on, when love fails, and stops, that's where the problem starts. But we must understand that when we talk about under Article 148, Article 148 covers situations where the marriage is void from the very beginning, or the couple live together as husband and wife without the benefit of marriage because there exists a legal impediment. And in this case that was recently decided by the Supreme Court, there was a legal impediment. They cannot marry because they are of the same sex. And for that, Article 148 provides, the rule as to how the properties will be divided. So under Article 148, the properties acquired during their cohabitation as husband and wife can be considered as common property. Okay? But of course, there are requirements that must be complied with. Number one, the property must have been acquired during their cohabitation when they live together as husband and wife without the benefit of marriage. And number two, there is evidence that the properties were acquired through their actual joint contribution of money, property, or industry. And such contributions and corresponding shares of the parties are prima facie, presumed to be equal. Now, however, for this presumption to arise, there must be proof of actual contribution. Unlike in 147, we are talking about 148. In 147, the marriage was declared void, but not because of a legal impediment. Example, the marriage was declared void because of psychological capacity under Article 36. You don't need a proof of actual contribution. In fact, the care, the maintenance, and household of the family will be considered as the actual contribution of the partner. But in 148, it's different. You still must have proof of actual contribution. And in this case, the proof that was shown, the evidence that was submitted to show at least actual contribution is actually the acknowledgement that was executed by the respondent, wherein she acknowledged that her partner contributed, and contributed at least 50%, on with the actual contribution is 50% representing her contribution in its acquisition and the construction of the improvements introduced in the property. And that's the reason why here the Supreme Court said, this property therefore is co-owned.
Attorney, what if the contributions weren't equal between the two parties? How would that change the dynamics of a case?
It will still be considered under the rules of co-ownership, and in relation to Article 148, they are still co-owners, but the ownership will be limited to one's actual contribution. But in the absence of actual contribution, but there is a recognition that there's contribution. Okay, still that the presumption will be, it will be 50-50. But if there's evidence to show that it's actually 60-40, then the co-ownership will be 60-40.
So, but there's a presumption of equal contribution.
Yes.
Okay, but attorney, in real life, couples don't always keep receipts or all these acknowledgement documents, right? So, what kind of proof should couples, especially same-sex ones, keep to protect themselves?
Well, number one, of course, will be your receipts, no, to show actual contribution. Number two will be, like in this case, a written acknowledgement that there is actually co-ownership, an affidavit which can be used against any of the co-owned or any of the partners. Third, in other words, there should be a paper trail. Okay, you cannot just go to court and say I co-own. There must be paper trail to back up your claim that you have actually contributed, because it's actual contribution. Paper trail is very important.
And attorney, would you consider this a landmark ruling in terms of recognizing the rights of same-sex couples, or is it more of a clarification of an existing law? Because this decision was heavily anchored, as you mentioned, on Article 148 of the Family Code. But does this decision also create any new rights, or does it just clarify something that was often overlooked before?
With all due respect, it's not a clarificatory decision. It is really a landmark decision as far as I'm concerned. Because this is the first case wherein the Supreme Court recognized that Article 148 applies to same-sex couples, okay? And it is a recognition that even if they are not married, they have property rights. And that's the reason why, to my mind, this is a very important and landmark decision.
But at the same time, attorney, the Supreme Court was very clear about its limits, saying that they cannot grant the same bundle of rights as marriage. And the broader solution there must come from Congress. For you, attorney, what are some of the protections that are still missing for same-sex couples despite this ruling from the Supreme Court?
Okay. Of course, the validity of their union. We still do not have any law that would allow and recognize same-sex marriages as valid, because under Article 1 of the Family Code, it is clearly stated there that marriage is between a man and a woman. So that is very important. Why? Because if they are not technically legally married, if one of them dies, then the other one does not have any successional rights. If the person dies without a will. Of course, it's different when the person dies with a will. He or she can very well put a stipulation in the will, giving something or bequeathing something to the other couple, no, the surviving couple. But without that, if one of the them dies, okay, then the problem is, okay, the other surviving one would not be considered a compulsory heir. So number one, I think, is whether it is high time that we should recognize, same-sex marriage as a valid marriage.
But attorney, are you optimistic that this decision from the Supreme Court could eventually open the door to, of course, the broader recognition of rights beyond property of same-sex couples?
I think so. The Supreme Court was open enough to discuss and for the first time, define exactly the property rights of same-sex couples. Maybe, but of course, it's just the Supreme Court applying Article 148. There is a law. Now, and the Supreme Court is very right. The Supreme Court cannot just simply, apply all the rights and privileges accorded to a legally married couple. There must be a law first that would allow and recognize the validity of the marriage of same-sex couples before they can, apply all the rights and privileges that are accorded to heterosexual unions.
And at the same time, well, several justices, including Justice Leonen and Ami Lazaro Javier, emphasized that same-sex relationships are normal and that they should not be legally invisible. In your personal opinion, attorney, how important are these statements? I mean, were you even surprised with what they said?
I'm not surprised at all because it's really true. I mean, there exist couples, okay, who are of the same sex. There are a number of couples I know for a fact that they have been together for more than 50 years and they're still together. So to me, as I said, this is something that has been existing for quite some time. It's about time, okay, that we should more or less recognize their rights. And this is the first step to recognition to my mind. This property relationship. If this, at the very least, if Congress cannot pass a law at this point in time to legalize same-sex marriage, at least a couple who is into that kind of relationship will still be protected. Okay, insofar as property relationship is concerned.
Now, after this ruling, the Supreme Court, attorney, practically passed the ball to Congress here, urging them to pass laws for same-sex couples. But in your view, what kind of law is most urgently needed to address this legal invisibility that we're calling and that the High Court talked about?
I think the amendment to Article 1 of the Family Code, which is not limiting the marriage, okay, between man and woman only. If there is one law that can be reviewed and can be amendment to address all these concerns regarding same-sex union, will be Article 1 of the Family Code. That will be, I'm very sure there will be so much debate on it.
And for you, attorney, what are some of the risks that remain for same-sex couples as long as there is no specific law governing the relationships?
Again, it's more of successional rights. If one of the couple, okay, one of them dies ahead of the other, then that person dies without a will. The surviving partner will not be able to inherit. That surviving partner will not be considered a compulsory heir because they're not married at all. Okay?
And do you see this ruling, attorney, influencing how lower courts will handle disputes involving same-sex couples moving forward?
Yes, ma'am, because the lower courts are bound to follow the decisions rendered by our Supreme Court because the decisions of the Supreme Court form part of the legal system of the Philippines.
And finally, just as a last question, attorney, how big of a win is this ruling of the Supreme Court, especially for the LGBTQ plus community? And but what still needs to happen from this point, especially if we want lasting legal protection for this community?
Okay. It's a very big win. As I mentioned earlier, to my mind, it's a landmark case because it gives now recognition that same-sex couples, okay, have property rights. Okay, they are in fact, but with this decision, the decision basically tells the couples of what to do in order that their property rights will be protected. Now, but this is just the first step. For the LGBT community, okay, of course, they need, okay, to make sure that the law will be amended accordingly, or at least a new law will be passed to recognize their relationship as valid and binding.
All right. Well, thank you very much for helping break that down for us. That was Attorney Sol Mawis. Thank you very much, Attorney.
Bye-bye. Good night. Good morning.
Do stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Now, as Congress pushes forward with proposals to finally ban political dynasties in the country, legal experts are now divided on how far that prohibition should go, setting the stage for a crucial debate on scope, constitutionality, and implementation. More details in this report.
Conflicting opinions emerged between two legal experts on proposals seeking to prohibit political dynasties in the Philippines. According to former Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, there is sufficient basis to implement the ban up to the fourth degree of consanguinity. This means spouses, siblings, parents, and children, first cousins, as well as uncles, aunts, and nephews or nieces would be barred from running simultaneously in national and local elections. Only one candidate per family would be allowed to run for the national office and one for local office. Succession would also be prohibited, meaning once an official completes a term, they cannot be immediately replaced by a relative. A one-term break would be required before a family member could run again after skipping an election.
The Constitution recognizes that the fourth degree of consanguinity can be a limitation on appointment. Under the Constitution, the President cannot appoint relatives by consanguinity or affinity within the fourth civil degree.
Retired Supreme Court Associate Justice Adolfo Azcuna agrees there should be a gap to prevent succession within political families, requiring at least one term of rest. However, he believes limiting the ban to the second degree of consanguinity would be more doable in dismantling political dynasties, especially in the provinces. Azcuna warned that extending the ban up to the fourth degree could be an overreach and difficult to implement, particularly in verifying relationships among thousands of candidates.
We must not forget that there is an enforcement side to the definition, and 4 degrees might be an overreach and difficult to implement in view of the thousands of candidates involved, and verification of the relationship may be difficult.
Azcuna also said one point of contention is whether the ban should apply only to local positions, leaving the final decision to lawmakers.
More or less, Your Honors, this type of arrangement is safer constitutionally rather than an ambitious one that will cover up to 4 degrees, all kinds of offices. It might be considered as an overbreadth a kind of legislation and therefore constitutionally defective.
Caloocan Representative Egay Erice also expressed doubts about implementing a fourth-degree ban, saying a second-degree limit may be a workable compromise. Carpio, however, maintained that the fourth degree is not new, noting that the Constitution and existing laws already prohibit appointments and conflicts of interest involving relatives up to the fourth degree. But Erice argued that enforcement is easier in appointments than in the filing of certificates of candidacy.
It's very easy to the appointing authority can really investigate who are relatives in fourth degree of consanguinity and affinity. But in the filing of candidacy, in the filing of certificate of candidacy, medyo komplikado.
Carpio responded that rules can be set, such as recognizing the first to file and imposing strict penalties for violations to ensure compliance. Meanwhile, Akbayan Party List Representative Chel Jokno proposed amending the Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth or SALN law to require government officials to disclose a family tree.
That way, we could cover all the bases. Ang pag-file ng isang kandidato, sasabihin niya, wala po akong ibang kasama na sa pamilya within the fourth degree, at mache-check natin po yan sa kanyang SALN.
So far, 22 anti-political dynasty bills have been filed in the House of Representatives. The House Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms will conduct public consultations in various parts of the country, starting in Cavite this Thursday, followed by Cebu and Cagayan de Oro.
And in other news, President Bongbong Marcos has approved 21 priority measures endorsed by the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, or LEDAC. And among the proposed bills are the abolition of the travel tax and expanded measures against online sexual abuse and exploitation of children. The president also underscored the need to pass the anti-political dynasty law, along with governance reforms such as the Cadena Act, the Independent People's Commission Act, and the Party List System Reform Act. Malacanang said the measures are part of broader efforts to improve the political system and to strengthen citizen participation, with administration targeting their passage before June. And President Bongbong Marcos expects U.S. President Donald Trump to visit Manila later this year as the Philippines hosts the ASEAN Summit. The visit is expected to coincide with the 80th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and the United States. Marcos said the country looks forward to continued support from the U.S. in ASEAN community building through their comprehensive strategic partnership. Trump last visited the Philippines in 2017 during a previous ASEAN summit. And the Philippines and the U.S. are longtime treaty allies and are also marking the 75th anniversary of their mutual defense treaty this year. Now, meanwhile, the National Commission of Senior Citizens has begun processing the 100,000 peso cash gift for 4 Aita centenarians after a vlog claimed they were disqualified for being overage. Mobile journalist Daniel Dayaw has that story.
The process has finally moved forward for the 4 Aita centenarians hoping to receive the 100,000 cash gift from the government. The National Commission of Senior Citizens says it is targeting to release the national benefit within the week. The story of the 4 Aita elders, all over 100 years old, recently went viral online. This was after a vlog claimed that they were disqualified from receiving the cash gift due to being overage. According to NCSC, although the applications were officially received only this Monday, their documents are now under the validation phase.
Actually, ngayon lang po namin talaga officially natanggap yung application forms nung 4 na ITAS. Kasi yung, kung yung napanood nyo, actually, wala pa naman talaga silang application forms sa amin.
Yes po.
So, we confirmed na hindi pa talaga nakakapag-apply yung 4 for the centenarian benefits under 11982. Yung expanded centenarian act. So what the municipality did was to provide them with the application form, and then na-fill up pa naman nila.
According to NCSC Regional Director of Region 3 Emmanuel Daez, one of the reasons for the delay is the careful verification of their birth certificates.
We will try our best na within the week matapos na ito. We already sent scan copy to our central office for cross-checking, kasi hindi lang naman kasi porket nag-apply, automatic na yon. Kasi titingnan din natin yan, i-verify din natin kung may mga applications lang yun sila sa other provinces or sa other, kahit sa abroad.
Meanwhile, the NCSC clarified that it did not neglect the rights of the Filipino centenarians. NCSC Regional Director of Region 3 Emmanuel Daez further stressed that the agency could not immediately process the case because the centenarians had not yet formally applied through their municipality, which is necessary for the processing of the benefits.
Emphasize ko lang na hindi pa kami nakatanggap talaga nung last week ng application forms nila. Today.
In relation to the issue, DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian ordered the release of 10,000 cash assistance for each of the 4 centenarians. It was also clarified that the Centenarian Cash Gift Program is now under the supervision of the NCSC. NCSC Chairperson and CEO Attorney Merceditas Gutierrez assured the public that the agency is carrying out its duties. As of now, the process for the release of 100,000 cash gift is ongoing. The public is hopeful that the 4 Aita centenarians will soon receive the benefits they are entitled to. Kapatid Mobile Journal Daniel Dayaw, we are One News.
And moving on to another story, something lighter this time. Art and history are taking center stage in Angono this National Arts Month, as a local museum invites the public to experience its collection in a different light, even after dark. More details in this report by our mobile journalist, Jazz Paredes.
As the sun sets over the Angono Lakeside Eco Park and dusk falls, the town's Nono Museum of Art History opens its doors to the public. In celebration of National Arts Month, the museum launched a limited night at the museum experience, allowing visitors to explore its gallery during evening hours every weekend. Unlike its usual weekday and daytime operations, the museum now opens from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. on weekends from February 8 until February 28.
Is nasa Lawa, ang dami pong pumupunta sa gabi dito. And dumadayo sa overlooking, tapos napupunta po dito. Ang goal namin is kahit na gabi, makapag-visit pa rin sa museum, yung mga may work, ayan, yung iba na hindi lang sa overlooking, and yung ibang mga tourist spot dito. Kumbaga, meron din na history.
Visitors continue to arrive late into the evening to view the artworks on display. Featured are works by Angono masters including Juan Senson and Pedro Piñon. The collection also presents art history and cultural pieces from the time when Angono was still hacienda.
May meeting kami. Yun, kasama na rin ang pamamasyal. Pagkatapos ng meeting, napagkasundoan ng grupo na pumasok dito dahil para makita namin kung anong mga art ng taga-Angono. At nalalaman din namin kung sino ang mga artist, sino gumawa, at ang history ng bawat picture. Actually, laging na ako nababalik dito, tinitingnan ko na ito, nakikita ko na itong lugar na to. Diyan naman, ang mga view, nandito, nakikita ko yung mga nono, yung nono na nono.
From its name, Nono, the museum highlights Angono's early leaders referred to in local history as ang Nuno. Based on the traditional etymology, Angono is said to come from ang uno or ang puno, meaning leader or elder.
Nuno means leader, pinuno. Doon niyango ang pangalan ang nuno. Ayan. Si Nuno daw noon ay pinakamatandang tao na nilalapitan ng mga tao kapag may problema and pag merong may sakit, kay Nuno po lumalapit, napapagaling niya, and wala po siyang hinihinging kapalit.
Beyond renowned Angono artists such as Carlos Botong Francisco and Maestro Lucio San Pedro, the museum also aims to spotlight other local artists known as the Nono Masters.
Ang goal natin is para makita ng future generation na ma-preserve, kasama na din doon, ang tinatago nating bukod pa sa ibang artists, meron tayong mga Nono Masters. Yun ang pinapakilala po dito sa museum na ito. Pinapakilala po din namin dito ang mga Nono Masters po natin. Gaya ni Juan Senson or Tandang Juancho and si Pedro Piñon, Pedrong Pintor.
On display are significant historical pieces including Jose Pitok Blanco's painting Mamumukot, sculptures of national heroes such as the bust of Dr. Jose Rizal by Juan Senson, the original book readings in the history of Angono written by Eugenio Lara II, and photographs documenting the discovery of the Angono Binangonan petroglyphs. The Nono Museum of Art History is free and open to the public. Kapatid Jas Paredes, we are One News.
Now, don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Now, as we know, the House of Representatives has officially dismissed 2 impeachment complaints against President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. In the plenary vote, 284 lawmakers approved the dismissal, 8 opposed, and 4 abstained. The House Justice Committee earlier found that the complaints were sufficient in form, but not in substance. Meanwhile, House Secretary General Cheloy Garafil confirmed that the 3rd impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte has been transmitted to the office of Speaker Boji D. And joining us this morning is Mamamayang Liberal Party List Representative Laila De Lima herself. Good morning, Congresswoman, and welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Pauline. Good morning to your viewers.
Okay, Congresswoman, you were one of the 8 lawmakers who opposed this resolution, dismissing the impeachment complaints against President Bongbong Marcos for being insufficient in substance. But what did you make, Congresswoman Laila, of how the Justice Committee handled the entire proceedings and how the plenary eventually ruled on these complaints?
Okay, to be fair, in the Justice Committee, especially on the part of the presiding officer, the chairperson, Congresswoman Jinky Luistro, she handled it quite fairly and competently. Now, why did I vote why did I vote in favor of declaration of the sufficiency in substance of the 2nd complaint, the Maza et al. Complaint? Because at the committee level, I voted for its declaration as sufficient in form, both in form and substance. I voted because to me, it was a premature dismissal on the part of the House, because it's supposed to be just the determination of the sufficiency in form and substance. And yes, no question about it, that the 2 complaints, with the Jesus complaint and the Maza et al. Complaint, were both sufficient in form. Now, as to substance, the Jesus complaint, I agree, it was insufficient in substance, but not the Maza et al. Complaint or the 2nd complaint. I do believe that based on the close analysis of the entire impeachment complaint, I believe that it alleges enough or sufficient facts as to constitute grounds for impeachment. Because under the rules, Pauline, isa lang ang batayan. There's only one test. Whether or not the complaint contains recital of facts constituting the offense charge and determinative of the jurisdiction of the committee or of the House. Now, no question that the committee has jurisdiction. It has been endorsed to it, duly endorsed to it by the plenary with respect to those impeachment complaints. But then, you're not supposed to already determine whether certain allegations are true, whether they are credible, and whether those certain evidence are admissible or not. Because those matters are to be weighed, are to be determined and deliberated upon at the proper time. At the proper time, the proper stage is not yet at this level, at this stage, which is merely the determination of sufficiency in substance. Doon na yan sa evidentiary hearing. It will come later kapag pumasa na sa sufficiency stage, and then there's still even a 2nd stage. Even before the evidentiary hearing, meron pang isang stage, and that is to determine whether there are sufficient grounds for impeachment. And that is done if the pleadings are there already, if the respondent filed already his or her answer, and then the complainant filed reply if they so desire, and then also if the respondent would file a rejoinder to the reply, to which they can attach supporting evidence, affidavits, etc. Yung mga wala pa sa complaint, pwedeng doon humabol, doon sa stage na yon. And then magdedetermine whether there are sufficient grounds for impeachment. If the decision is, if the finding is there are sufficient grounds for impeachment, then trial or evidentiary hearing follows. So premature, clearly to me, is premature. It's not in consonance with the rules. Because some of the questioning there, or some of the manifestation by some of the committee members already delved on the strength of the allegations or of the supporting evidence. They're already asking, are there enough evidentiary support? Is this particular evidence admissible? Katulad nung pag-refer doon sa complaint, sa second complaint, they were alluding to the supposed confessions of the former Representative Zaldico, the chair of the Appropriations Committee. Hindi ho ba may video dyan? Now, of course, hindi pa ito authenticated, hindi pa ito under oath, but precisely, an impeachment proceedings is not strictly legal. It's constitutional and as well as political. Hindi walang room, there's no room for strict application of technical rules of procedure. The best thing to do is for the committee to subpoena, to summon Zaldico, and then let him affirm it or deny it under oath, and be subjected to proper cross-examination to test his credibility and the credibility of what he is narrating. That's the proper stage for evidentiary, but not at this early stage. So clearly, mali po, with due respect to the majority members, because, 284 members voted to junk the complaints. Only 8 dissented and 4 abstained. Yes.
Well, Kong Lala, with all that said, how are those takeaways shaping your expectations now as the House prepares to take up the impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte? You were quoted as saying that you believe the complaints this time around are even stronger and better than those that were filed last year. What makes you more confident this time, Congresswoman?
Yes, because at least the two complaints, the second and the third complaint, which I endorse, I believe there are sufficient and strong allegations, including factual narration, detalyado po, especially with respect to, of course, tungkol sa admission of the Vice President in a public broadcast, a very public broadcast, of contracting an assassin and plotting to murder or assassinate the President, the First Lady, and the former Speaker. The best evidence is the video. All we have to do is authenticate the video. And in fact, it's a public knowledge already. Karamihan sa atin nakita yon, even it was even picked up by foreign media. So almost everybody knows about those utterance of threatening words. So that is from her own mouth. And then, of course, with respect to the allegation of misuse and malversation and anomalous disbursements of confidential funds as Vice President and also as head of the office of as head of the Department of Education, which he held concurrently as Vice President, there are sufficient allegations and even evidence. Nandyan yung mga official audit findings, nandyan yung mga liquidation, the liquidation reports which showed falsification of the names of payees, falsify the liquidation, and even the transcripts of the hearings. We also those hearings before the House Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability. And the bribery of certain DepEd officials and employees holding procurement-related functions. There's enough testimony on record, legislative record, that she caused the respondent, VP Sara, caused the distribution of monetary gifts to these DepEd officials holding procurement-related functions.
Kong Laila, yes. I also wanted to ask, if you're already seeing any signs that House members might once again push for the express route. I think Congressman Terry Redon said that's still a possibility. But as far as you know, are there any moves to gather signatures at this point?
I have not heard about it. There's no such, I have no information about it, although media has been asking me also about that. At kung sakaling meron, Pauline, they have to do it fast. You know, before the 3 impeachment complaints so far filed against VP Sara are referred to the Justice Committee. As we speak, they have not yet been referred to the Justice Committee because they are to be taken up yet by the Committee on Rules. I think it's next week, Tuesday. Tuesday next week, which is the regular meeting of the Rules Committee. Now, they have 10 session days to do that. And the putting, having it included in the order of business, and also the referral after 3 session days. 10 days muna, and then 3 session days. And well within the period. But since we have had already 5 session days, so 5 na lang, 5 session days remaining for the matter to be referred to the Justice Committee, they have to hurry if there's such a plan. But as I said, I have not heard, or I have not, I do not know of any such plan.
All right, so we will keep a close watch on that. But before we let you go, Congresswoman Laila, you recently said, this is looking ahead to 2028, that you believe former Vice President Leni Robredo is still the most winnable candidate. What makes you say that, Congresswoman? And is this a sentiment that, that the unified opposition also shares?
Well, I sincerely believe it, and many in the opposition, I think, share that sentiment. But of course, wala pa kung decision pa ngayon, there's no consensus yet on the part of the opposition camp as to who exactly would be our standard bearer to go against the Vice President Sara. Now, and of course, we know that initial reports have it, and I can actually confirm it, that the former VP Leni, Mayor Leni Robredo, is still hesitant and has actually said no about running for 2028. But as I said in the interview yesterday, I am not losing hope because I believe this sentiment and this opinion about her being the most winnable among the possible contenders against VP Sara is shared by many. I've been talking to a lot of people, not only from within the opposition forces, even pro-administration personalities. I've heard them say that. Na malakas daw ang tsansa ni VP Leni. She is the most winnable because of her track record and, of course, of her character. Yes.
And do you think, Congresswoman, that this clamor would be enough to make former VP Leni to reconsider her decision to run for 2028?
I suppose so, and of course, prayers. Yes, prayers.
All right. Well, we're going to leave that conversation there for now. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing all your insights. That was Mamamayang Liberal Party List Representative Laila De Lima.
Thank you, Pauline. Have a good day.
All right, and that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Berzosa. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.